When Daniel and Marcus escaped to the countryside for the weekend, all they wanted was quiet, a break from the relentless pulse of the city, from the screens and the schedules. The promise of peace lay ahead, golden fields rolling under a late afternoon sun, the air heavy with the scent of grass and distant rain. Their small car rumbled along a narrow dirt road, dust swirling in the wake of their arrival, crows flitting overhead. It was the kind of quiet that felt sacred, a silence so deep it pressed against their ears and opened their lungs. Marcus, grinning as he rolled down the window, let the breeze wash over his face. "Man, smell that fresh air. No car horns." Daniel, ever practical, glanced at his phone, searching for a signal. "Yeah, but no Wi-Fi either. We'll survive." They didn't know that quiet could be deadly. They didn't know the silence would grow teeth. The farmhouse stood at the end of the road, old bones creaking in the wind. Peeling paint clung desperately to the weathered boards, and a rusted swing swayed on its own, moving with the wind, or perhaps something else. As they pulled up, an elderly man appeared in the doorway, his coat patched and worn, his eyes deep and unreadable. He said little, but his warning was heavy. A stone dropped in the stillness. "Don't open the cellar," the owner said, voice barely above a whisper, words trailing into the afternoon hush. "No matter what you hear, don't." Daniel frowned, curiosity prickling at the back of his mind. "Why?" The man stared at them, the silence stretching thin as wire. "Just don't!" The words lingered, a shadow behind their laughter as they unpacked. The house was old, its history etched into every corner. They explored, creaky stairs, dusty portraits gazing from tarnished frames, hallways that grew dim even with the lamps on. The clock in the hall ticked with a muffled insistence, and somewhere, just beneath the edge of hearing, there was tapping, always tapping. By nightfall, the house felt alive. The air was thick, charged with something they couldn't name. It was as if the walls were listening, holding their breath, waiting. Marcus paused in the hallway, one hand on the banister. From the darkness beyond the cellar door, he heard a faint tapping, like bony fingers drumming on wood. He shivered, the hairs on his neck rising. "You heard that?" he asked, voice low. Daniel, staring at a portrait in the flickering light, saw a shadow move in the glass, a shape that shouldn't be there, twisting behind painted eyes. "Probably rats," Daniel replied, trying to sound casual, but Marcus shook his head, eyes wide. "Rats don't whisper names," he said, and Daniel felt the first curl of unease in his gut. The night deepened. Shadows stretched along the walls, growing longer, darker. Marcus walked past the cellar door, drawn by the persistent tapping. The knob, cold and metal, turned slowly on its own. A freezing mist escaped through the crack, swirling around his ankles, seeping into the floorboards. He froze, staring as the door creaked open just enough to reveal darkness beyond. From below, a deep thud echoed, and something slithered through the gap, more shadow than shape, sliding down the stairs with hungry intent. Without thinking, Marcus slammed the door shut, heart pounding in his chest. Daniel rushed over, and together they pressed their weight against the wood, feeling the cold seep through, fingers numb. Curiosity opens doors that should stay closed. They retreated to the living room, flashlights clutched in trembling hands. The house was no longer silent. Distorted whispers slid through the walls, floorboards creaked overhead, and the wind outside seemed to howl with a voice of its own. Shadows stretched unnaturally, pooling in corners, crawling along the ceiling. Every sound was magnified, every silence thick with threat. They survived until morning, huddled together in the pale wash of dawn. But something from the cellar didn't stay there. The air felt heavier, charged with dread, and both men knew the peace they'd sought was gone. By noon, they packed in frantic silence. Bags stuffed, the trunk slammed shut, and they sped away down the dirt road, not daring to look back. The countryside receded behind them, fields swallowing the farmhouse whole. The city welcomed them with noise and crowds, but the sense of relief was fleeting. Safe, or so they thought. It began subtly, first in Daniel's apartment. The light flickered and dimmed, casting strange patterns on the walls. Faint knocking echoed from the windows, persistent and patient. Marcus, alone in his kitchen, caught glimpses of a shadow moving in the hallway, slipping around corners just out of sight. The air grew cold, and a low growl hummed through the pipes, rising with static as night fell. Marcus called Daniel, voice strained and tired. "Tell me I'm not crazy." Daniel's voice was small, hollow. "It's here too. It followed us. Evil doesn't stay in one place, it moves with you." Desperate, they sought help. A small church on the edge of town offered hope, its candlelight flickering in the gloom. The priest listened, his face grave, eyes sad. "This thing is tied to you, not the house," he said, voice measured but wary. Daniel leaned forward, fingers knotted. "Then get rid of it." The priest nodded. "I can try." He came to their homes, blessing each room, holy water splashing against wood and glass. The air vibrated, objects rattling violently on shelves, shadows twisted, the temperature dropping until their breath hung in the air. But the darkness resisted, clinging to them with unseen hands. Still, hope remained. They called in an official exorcist, a woman known for facing darkness before. She arrived at Daniel's apartment, candles burning in a circle, a heavy wooden cross gleaming in her grip, a leather-bound ritual book open to ancient incantations. Low chanting filled the room, the air thickening as the ritual began. Loud bangs erupted from the walls, furniture shaking and sliding across the floor. The shadows grew denser, swirling like smoke. Daniel felt himself lift from the ground, limbs weightless, mind spinning. Marcus staggered, eyes turning black as ink, his voice twisted in a scream that was not his own. Holy water sizzled on the floor, burning away the mist, but the darkness fought back, throwing furniture with violent force. Multiple voices screamed at once, a sudden wind blasting through the apartment, whipping papers and curtains into a frenzy. It didn't just want to stay, it wanted to take them. The battle raged for what felt like hours, pushing both men to the edge of exhaustion. The exorcist chanted louder, her voice rising above the chaos, the cross burning with a light that hurt their eyes. Slowly, the darkness receded, pulled back into the shadows, the cold fading as morning crept through the windows. Silence, for now. Morning light spilled over the wrecked apartment. Both men sprawled on the floor, eyes glazed, bodies shaking. They thought it was over. The air was still, the rooms quiet, hope flickering at the edge of their thoughts. But that night, as Daniel lay in bed, his phone lit up. A single text message glowing against the darkness. "I'm still here." He stared at the screen, heart racing, breath shallow. Beneath the sound of the notification, he heard it, the faint breathing, slow and hungry, winding through the quiet of his room. The haunting had followed them. It would never truly let go. That weekend in the countryside was supposed to be an escape, a brief retreat into silence and peace. But the peace was a lie, the silence only a mask for something deeper, something ancient and restless. The farmhouse, with its peeling paint and rusted swing, was a gateway, not a sanctuary. The owner's warning, simple and grave, echoed through every moment that followed, a reminder that some doors should never be opened, some secrets left undisturbed. The cellar was the heart of it, a wound in the earth where darkness gathered, waiting for foolish hands and curious minds. Marcus and Daniel, city boys searching for calm, stumbled into a story older than the house itself. The tapping, the whispers, the shadows that moved when no one watched. Signs of something hungry, something that remembered every footstep, every breath. That first night was only the beginning. The sense of being watched, the cold pressing in, the whispers threading through the walls, all warnings, all ignored. The cellar's mist, icy and unnatural, crept into their bones, marking them, binding them to whatever slept below. The door, once opened, could never truly be shut. When they fled, it was with hope that distance would save them, that the city's noise would drown out whatever followed. But evil doesn't recognize boundaries or respect escape. It clings, it waits, it adapts. Daniel's apartment, Marcus's kitchen, new hunting grounds, new places for the darkness to stretch and grow. The lights flickered, the air chilled, the knocking grew louder. Shadows twisted in corners, and static filled the silence.
Fear drove them to seek help, to find faith in places they'd never thought to look. The priest, solemn and careful, understood the weight of what they carried. Blessings brought temporary relief, but the darkness was clever, learning their names, their routines, their weaknesses. Objects rattled, air vibrated, and hope began to wither.
The exorcist was their last chance. Her rituals, her courage, her tools, candles, crosses, words as old as memory, battled the thing that had latched onto them. The fight was brutal, reality bending under the strain. Daniel levitated, Marcus's eyes darkened, furniture crashed and voices shrieked. The apartment became a battlefield, every moment risking their sanity, their lives. In the end, there was quiet again. Not peace, never peace, but quiet. The morning sun brought a fragile sense of victory, exhaustion settling into their bones.
But the haunting was not over. It was patient, clever, persistent. It waited for the moment when their guard dropped, when hope returned, when they believed they might be free.
Daniel's phone, glowing in the darkness, was proof enough. The message, simple and chilling, "I'm still here," cut through every illusion, every hope. The breathing, soft and steady, was a promise.
The haunting had followed them. It would never stop.
The countryside, the farmhouse, the cellar, these were only the beginning. The darkness they woke stretched beyond walls and fields, beyond towns and cities. It moved with them, learned from them, grew stronger with every fear, every doubt. They learned that some escapes are impossible, that silence can hide danger, that evil, once awakened, is never content to stay behind. The story of Daniel and Marcus is a warning, not just to those who crave quiet, who chase peace in forgotten places, but to all who believe that evil is bound by doors and distance. It is not. It is clever and patient, waiting for the curious, the unwary, the desperate. The farmhouse still stands, its paint peeling, its swing rusting, the cellar door closed but never truly locked. The owner's warning echoes through the fields, lost in the wind, waiting for the next visitor, the next story. In the city, Daniel and Marcus live with the knowledge that they are marked, haunted. Every flicker of light, every whisper in the dark, every chill in the air is a reminder. They survived, but survival is not freedom. The haunting follows, always one step behind, always ready to remind them, "I'm still here." Evil does not stay in one place. It moves, it waits, it learns. And sometimes it never leaves at all.